Hello and welcome to another episode of Google Developers Live. My name is Arun Nagarajan.
And I'm Kalyan Reddy.
This is Google Apps Unscripted, July 2013 edition. So this is our monthly office hours / announcements and just general discussion GDL that we do. We've started doing this, I think, for a few months now, and it's been really successful, and really excited to see all the people jump in, ask questions. And we're deep in the summer, so really excited to pick up the pace and have a lot of announcements and really cool things that we're working on. We'll be sharing that with you very soon.
If you're tuning in live, we're gonna start with release notes and other new and cool features in AppScript, and then we'll get to your questions.
That's right. Yeah, to give us about 10 minutes to give you, bring you up to speed on what we've done so far in July, and then we'll save plenty of time for Q&A. So, Kalyan, do you want to start us off with release notes and
sure.
the 2 releases we've done so far this month?
Sure. Oh, and by the way, if there's a Hangouts link as well, so you can join us there and you can chime in with your questions, and we'll try our best to answer them. All right, let's go ahead and get started with release notes here. We've had 2 releases so far in July since our last Apps Unscripted. The first one here, well, on July 9th, we added a new service, XML Service. This is actually a direct replacement for our old XML Service, and it features several improvements here. Our colleague, Eric Kalita, you might know him from previous AppScript episodes. He created this blog post that you should check out on our AppScript blog, googleappsdeveloper.blogspot.com. He basically goes through a very simple example of how you create various elements with the new XML service. Get some inbox threads, put them as XML elements, give them attributes and such, and it's all very straightforward, so it's worth checking out. One thing you'll notice is that if you're familiar with JDOM, this should look similar, and you should have no trouble getting started with that.
An important thing to note here is that the old one that we deprecated is just called XML, which is a little confusing and inconsistent with some of the other services that we have. So the new one is called XML Service, and it's easier to find and easier to use.
And so, so if you're looking for the documentation, it's in the same place as the old one, except you'll see the old one as it's actually deprecated down here. That's the old service, and then the new one is here.
Right. So just keep that in mind when you're searching for this.
So we, along with that, we also deprecated the SOAP service. So now you're able to just use the new XML service with your URL fetch app and replicate a lot of that functionality.
That's right. Yeah, you can template an XML file as well, so you can use the HTML services templating capability to populate your XML template if you have one. Or, as most APIs have gone, JSON and REST-based services have kind of taken over. So obviously we provided really good support for that for a long time, so keep that in mind as well.
Right. All right, let's see, and some issue fixtures here. One is that if you're using the advanced Google services, again, these are things like URL shortener that live under, tasks that live under the advanced Google services tab in our documentation. If you're using those, there was a slight problem in which if you were chaining method calls together, instead of doing each method on a separate line as a different statement, then there was an error, and that's no longer thrown. That was a temporary issue that we fixed.
Yeah, I apologize for those issues. If you did change your code to not chain them, it's okay, you can leave it as such, but if you're copying and pasting your samples or you want to keep your code really succinct, you can chain them again.
Right. And finally, the remove editor method on a file object, it no longer throws an exception when the editor is a group and not an individual user. Let's see, on the July 22nd release, we added 2 of our new services that we released in the I/O timeframe that you'll remember. We added that to the AppScript dashboard, so now you can get alerts whenever a service has reliability issues or something for a day. You'll see that tracked.
That's right. Yeah, and the dashboard's actually, I think it's script.google.com/dashboard. Is that right?
Dashboard, that's
yep.
right.
So script.google.com/dashboard. If you think you're having an issue, I think I have the URL right. Let's just quickly verify it and see if I'm.
Let's quiz Arun here.
Yeah.
On there here. Yes. There we go. All right. So you'll see them here. Drive app and Form app are the 2 that we added.
Yeah. So that should, if you think you're having some issue or an outage, make sure you check there. That'll be a really good indication of what's going on. And it took us a while to put it up there, but now you can check there for the new services we launched as well.
Yeah, and this interesting issue that we fixed. It came up basically when you exposed a script as a web app, there were certain URL parameters that were getting like cut when you were passed. I think one was $PLI equals 1, and you would think, why not just use other parameters? But there's certain organizations where they by default require these. There's some special meaning to them. In any case, we fixed it such that now you can use whatever parameter you want. All of them will get passed to your application without being trimmed or cut.
That's right. I think it mostly came up when you had a web app embedded into a Google site, and there were certain parameters either added in manually or automatically by some system, and the web app never got those parameters. So we fixed that.
Awesome. That's it for release notes.
So yeah, the 2 releases, and hopefully all of that kind of walked you through what we've added or updated, or in one case deprecated and replaced with something better. So. And
there's also another nice addition here.
That's right. So one of the things that we didn't really make it part of the release notes, but we think it's really big and important, it's sort of the top post right now in our developer blog, is the end user experience of authorizing your application. Just got probably, I don't know, 10 times, 100 times better. It's just been probably one of the long-term pain points that we've heard from a lot of different developers. The developers that started working on the platform several years ago, I think, have gotten used to this by now, but hopefully the new developers and the new users you're acquiring are experiencing a much nicer authorization process. Essentially what this is going to be now is a very standard authorization process that an end user sees, that they see when they authorize a standard web app that's built on Google technologies. That's using OAuth 2, generally speaking. And they get a really nice screen that's very clean and concise, tells the user what your script is trying to do, and then they get a very straightforward blue accept button where they can authorize your application. None of this sort of red screen if it's asking for some extra permissions. Your email address is not front and center in the authorization dialog.
Different color borders.
Different color borders.
I know a lot of longtime apps scripters are like, back in my day.
Yeah, you're probably probably upset that it's taken this long, but it took us a lot of effort to make sure this is consistent. This is without any issues. If you remember, actually back at I/O, we launched it as an opt-in only option for a script developer. So when they could upgrade their authorization experience through a menu option. We've now made this the default. So if you create a new script, it will now take this capability on. Your existing scripts, you still need to upgrade it yourself, because it is, we think, an important decision a developer makes, rather than us just flipping this off or flipping them on for everything. But you should definitely check this out. That I think it's going to be in the long run a really good developer end user experience. So just to kind of show you what this means. So if you take a look at the blog post, this is, if you take a look at this, these are 2 screenshots of the same authorization experience for an end user. So I forget what the script is. I think this is Gmail Snooze. Gmail Snooze, very popular script, allows you to attach a label to a Gmail thread and say, resurface this in X number of minutes or hours or days. Notice the difference in the look and feel for the end user. The first one has the email address actually blacked out because we didn't want that to be in the post. But you can see that it's a lot less scary. End users now will be more likely to authorize your script, or at least they're not going to be startled by it. And there's some really nice benefits because of this. So first of all, the cleanliness and the consistency is really important. But if you actually go and create a new script, let's just talk from a developer standpoint for a second, script.google.com. Logged in here as Kalyan's test account. So it's going to create a script. I'm just going to call it, GDL Test. The first thing that I'll do is just do a really simple Gmail app.get aliases. A really simple thing that by itself is not going to do anything. But if I hit run, the script obviously checks the code and makes sure that authorization is required. Click on the authorize dialog. A pop-up comes up. Really nice, consistent pop-up, and then it kind of has the ability for Kalyan to actually switch authorization. Once he's actually logged into multiple accounts, he can decide which account to authorize in. So that was something that was not possible before. Right. You were whichever default account where you were logged into your browser, we picked that up. So that's really important. And now the fact that I can click accept as a developer, and the script just picks up and runs. So I don't have to go back and hit run again. That's something that I think a lot of people have probably gotten used to, but now we actually continue the execution process after the authorization. That's really, really nice. And then the other big developer benefit is that if you are using Google APIs, the advanced services that we offer, one of the nice things is before you had to copy and paste a API key from a developer console project that you created manually, and you were supposed to synchronize the keys. Now we create a project for you automatically just by enabling a project that's OAuth 2 enabled, which is all new projects.
And the developer console, just to be clear, it's the Google APIs console.
That's right. Sorry, the Google APIs console. I call it the developer console a lot. It's very confusing, I know. So this is the one that you get to by code.google.com/API/console. And you can see that the project name is the same as your script name, and it takes you right to the services panel where you can enable a service, or you can automatically go and, if I just enable a service, let's just take the admin SDK for a second, agree to it, and you get the key automatically created, and we pick up the key for you, and you don't have to copy and paste this key in. So this is automatically enabled for your script. So this becomes a lot easier for developers to just use new services without having to think about which keys that they're using. Probably picked a bad example. I should have gone with the Tasks API, something that we support in this list, but you get the idea of how that has become a lot better as well. So bottom line, the authorization process has gotten a lot better for developers, a lot better for end users, and we really hope that this allows you to build more very interesting applications without a lot of hand-holding for your end users.
And if you do want this for your existing scripts, you can just still do the upgrade authorization experience that you get from the file.
That's right. Since this is a brand new script I created, if I go under File, this is grayed out because that's already enabled for you. But for your existing scripts, please turn that on, and you will, I think, really enjoy what that brings to you. And let us know if you have any issues, and at some point we will remove this option altogether. The next thing that we want to talk about is a community member, Kaisuke Osahi, I think I'm saying his name correctly, built a really interesting application using the Import-Export API that we launched about a month ago that allows you to get access to your source code from an external application, a Python app or a Node app.
And this is the Drive API.
This is the Drive API that allows you to get and set source code of a Google Apps Script project. And he's actually built some really interesting tools. So the first tool that he built was a Node.js application that allowed you to essentially mirror your source on an AppScript project on your local hard drive and edit locally. Really, really nice job. I had a chance to try it out. Works really well. It requires a bit of a setup so that I can get my refresh tokens and things like that, which, one-time experience from the AppScript, so the Google APIs playground, the OAuth 2 playground, I should say. And then from there on, it just works. You just run this command line, and it automatically synchronizes your code. What he's also done is he's taken that and then wrapped it into a Sublime Text plugin. So here's sort of the markup file that essentially allows you to set up your Sublime text to, when you hit save, runs the code to save it up to the AppScript API. So he's got a couple of screenshots that kind of shows you that in action.
And Sublime, if you're not familiar, is an editor with like nice default syntax highlighting that a lot of us here use.
That's right, and you probably saw me use it in my demo of the AppScript Import-Export API. So nice job, Kaisuke. Really excited to kind of show this off, and a really good example of a community member posting something on the G+ AppScript community, and we'll pick it up and we'll share. And so yeah, so definitely let us know if you build anything interesting, and we'll share with the audience here. And yeah, so I wanted to give a quick plug to Kaisuke. I know a lot of people want to develop outside of the script editor, and now it's possible. It takes a little bit of effort, and we're always looking for ways where the community members are improving that experience for the larger audience. Cool. You want to take some questions? Are there anyone on the live Hangout? All right, I think we have a bunch of people on the Hangout. If there are any questions, please go ahead.
Yes, hello. My name is Harry Oosterveen.
Hey Harry, how are you?
And I think I like the new authorization. I would like it even more if you could share the screen so we could see what you were doing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it did not come up.
Yeah, I think
Nope.
the screen may not be visible in the Hangout. I think if you watch the YouTube session,
Ah,
I think
okay.
yeah, so maybe there's just an issue with the screen sharing with the Hangout. We apologize.
I'll check it back on the YouTube then. And my question is about the script that I have. It's running in the background. There's some 500 or 600 users. And if I upgrade the authorization, does that mean that all users get a list of errors that they have to reauthorize?
That is correct. So let me just repeat the
Okay.
question in case that folks on YouTube or recorded can't hear it. Question from Harry was, I have several hundred users using my app that they've previously authorized and running on the background. If I say upgrade authorization experience, will they need to reauthorize? And the answer is yes. So that's why we're not doing this automatically for you. We think it's an important developer experience, developer step to turn this on because of this end user authorization process. It's really tricky to convert OAuth 1 based grants to OAuth 2 grants, and there's some security issues that we have to be concerned with, so end users do need to reauthorize it. It's if you release a new feature, perhaps that's the right time to roll it in.
Exactly.
So yeah, there is some planning required.
Yeah.
Good question, and I think it's stated in the documentation that that's required. But we should be very clear that if you upgrade authorization experience on your project, end users will need to reauthorize your scripts.
Okay, so better wait for the next upgrade.
Yep. Yeah. So you'll have to plan that out. Good point, Harry.
Okay.
Any other questions? Cool. So while we're waiting for questions, let's go down the list of questions on moderator. Actually, there's quite a few folks that posted ahead of time. You want to start taking some of these questions?
Yeah, sure.
I'll jump in as well.
So let's see. It would be great if we could have some sort of Quotas app API to know the current state of my scripts used or remaining quotas. So currently it's a black box. You don't have any predictions on when your script will suddenly fail. So unfortunately, that's true. We don't currently have this functionality to know for most services. For certain services, there is a method. So for example, the mail service has a get remaining daily quota limits.
Daily limit,
like get daily limit. So you
on mail app, yeah.
So, but the essence of this question is does this exist in the general case, and can we get it? So that's something that we're looking at. For right now, if you want to implement some of this functionality, you can do it in the form of like a try-catch statement.
Right.
So if you don't want your script to just throw an error to the user, you could cache that error and then you could present it in a nicer way, or you could retry it behind the scenes if it's like a rate issue, for example.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, so there's a combination of a few things here. I mean, obviously we want to make this very transparent and visible. So we're working on ways where we can improve this, either through an API or some sort of other tools that you may be able to inspect your API usage. It's nothing to announce at this point. We're looking at this and we're really aware of this issue, and it's something that we feel ourselves when we build scripts internally. So keep starring issues on the issue tracker. Make sure that you put a lot of good details in the issue tracker and get people on the Google Plus community to start as well to put their use cases in. We'll definitely continue to look at this. The one thing to keep in mind is that a lot of the quotas are actually pretty good if you're writing it to run as the end user. So if you write a script as a web app or as a Google document sidebar app or something along those lines, the person that opens the document, it uses their quotas, which for them it should be sufficient to create calendar events or scanning email. So you have to be, when you think about the quotas, think about, is it running as the user, the owner of the script, or is it running as the user at the keyboard? So if you think about that, oftentimes if you're able to run it as the user at the keyboard, you might be able to do more with the quotas.
Right. And the general rule of thumb is if you're providing a service that operates on like each user's inbox or something that's tailored for each individual, then you should probably try to use their quota, because their operations really should be debited to their individual accounts.
That's right. That's right. The next one is, do you have any tips or best practices when using AppScript to monitor calendar events? Oh, just updated. New questions came in. Let me just take that question from, I think it was Will in Boston. It's a really good question. It's something that, that we think the best way to do it would be using the push notification scheme that we have, getting sort of alerts or triggers or something along those lines. Today, there is no good way to do that, just to kind of jump ahead and talk about the other question. To receive a push notification, you have to be able to authorize the URL, you have to be able to accept HTTP headers. Those are things that are not very straightforward with AppScript. So as of now, a polling-based system is probably the easiest way to do, and you can get clever with including search parameters and including date parameters to make sure you're only polling on a smallest subset possible.
Right.
But without that, I can't really think of a much more creative way to do this.
And for example, if you already get all the events for certain dates in the past, then you can only start looking for events and you can restrict the search dates to be tomorrow until the future time, and then you can keep on incrementing that.
That's right. If you remember the last time you polled, then you kind of can keep moving the window to get the smallest response set possible for you to do something effectively. Let's see the next one. I would like to embed AppScript into docs or sheets programmatically. This will be possible in the future. When will the script gallery improve? Aha. So you're saying script gallery is not good enough? Yeah, so it's a really good question. As you can imagine, I think at Google I/O, when Saurabh and Jonathan Rasher, they showed off the Google Docs experience, how you can write scripts for it. We had not included the script gallery for docs, and we had mentioned that we're looking at ways to holistically make that much better. That's a process. It's an important project for us. And so yeah, so the answer for this is the Google script, the script gallery will improve, and it's going to be that'll be the answer, and that'll allow you to do a lot better things as a developer and for your end users.
And as far as the programmatic aspect, do you think they want to have another script that attaches this script to?
Yeah, I was trying to make sense out of that too. There's a couple of ways you could do. There's a question on Stack Overflow recently I answered where if you have like a template document that has a script associated with it, if you copy it using the Drive APIs that we offer in AppScript, you'll get the script associated with it. So that's one way to distribute a document and a script together. Another way is to use libraries, where you have a library that's included by your script, and that library will be available in every copy of that document. I think if you want to be able to programmatically open up a document and inject some script code into it, as of now, we're not really considering that. Pretty complicated to have that, and security-wise as well.
All right. Any more questions on the live Hangout?
Just speak up on the live Hangout if you have any questions.
Yeah, we'll keep the mic on. All right. I want to take the next here. What do we have?
The ScriptDB one.
I like to use ScriptDB, but tests show that it's slow on data writes, even in batch. 400 object writes in about 37 seconds. Are there any plans to speed it up? So using batch writes, I guess it generally depends on how large your objects are. That determines the speed at which it writes.
Yeah, I haven't taken a look at this particular question. So in general, yes, the plans are to continue to make ScriptDB and just the whole system faster. So if there are any specific instances like this, certainly log an enhancement request with reasonable details on what tests you've conducted, and again build consensus around it. The ScriptDB, it continues to be experimental as of now. So if you are looking for ways to store data in a much more robust production quality system, I would use something like Cloud SQL or Cloud Data Store, other systems that Google offers that has billing and quotas and much more production capable systems available. So that's something that I would look at, is if your performance is really slow, take a look at some of those other systems that we have access to.
And you can also use the JDBC service to connect to an external database using AppScript. So ScriptDB is really nice if you want to do something quick. If you want a script that's used by either just yourself or a couple of users and you want to throw small objects in there and retrieve them, it's perfect for that situation. But if you want to do anything serious, have large objects or lots of objects, you do want to consider some of these other connectors that we expose.
Yeah, and I've written scripts that have saved thousands of objects, and it does take a few dozen seconds sometimes. But if you're doing it sort of in an asynchronous process, or the user doesn't have to wait for that, there might be better ways to also not let the user see that issue.
Yeah.
All right, next
we
one.
Covered the events one. Let's see.
We're using the next question. So we should probably go in presentation mode here, I think.
Yeah.
Let's see where the presentation mode is. I forget where the link is. I apologize. This is sorting as you guys are voting on these questions. All right, we'll just pick off something. When using new authorization flow, it would be great to be able to add additional scopes and then automatically insert tokens. Yes, that's a great question. So let me rephrase this. So today, we pick up OAuth scopes that a script needs by evaluating the project and looking at all the APIs the script is using. That list is today opaque to the script developer. So you don't get to add or remove scopes that we have evaluated from your script. The question here is, we would like to be able to specify our own scopes along with what the script needs so that we could use that scope for the token for other calls that we may be making, like with the, the Google Glass API or something like that we may have. It's a really good feature request. You should log this in the issue tracker. I think it's something that we are very much thinking about. It's a really good idea and something that we want to support. No time frames, unfortunately.
Yeah,
it's a tricky one. Let's see. Quota question around ScriptDB. I think something that, again, no new announcements here. Something that you have to kind of manually watch for now. How much you're inserting. Do some fuzzy math to say if my object size in general is about 500 bytes, I have these many inserts I can do. So you kind of have to keep an eye on that. And there's no good way to ask a ScriptDB instance how many objects are in there quickly, and more importantly, how much space it's occupying. So.
Right. But there are methods that let you know that after you performed a series of writes, if they all succeeded or not.
That's right.
So we have examples on our using ScriptDB page. You can go and get the snippet there, and basically it iterates and calls all OK method, and then just sees that if it successfully wrote to the database or not.
Cool. The next question is about the source code of a library. Really good question around, can a script developer, if they distribute their project as a library for other scripts to use, can they rely on their script to be invisible, the code to be invisible from the script developers? And the answer is no. So you can in fact look at the source code of a library. The reason is that we think of library as a way to distribute functionality, not a way to hide keys or other functionality implementation details. So if you are really interested in sharing execution code, the best way might be to do it as a web app, where you publish it as a web app or as a content service application, because then all you're sharing with your end users is a URL rather than a library, which allows them to look at your source code but not change it or execute, or I guess it allows them to execute it. So it's a good question. I think our libraries page makes that clear. If not,
so
we
basically, in order for people to use your library, they need to have at least view permissions.
That's right.
So that there allows them to view the script source.
That's right. Yeah. So it's not a foolproof way to secure your source code. It's really just a way to share code rather than to lock away stuff. Push notifications, we spoke about that in the context of calendar. Same thing applies here. Let's see, that only supports OAuth 1. App Engine Cloud Endpoints implementation, which uses OAuth 2. What's the best practice with AppScript accessing these cloud endpoints, given AppScript only supports OAuth 1? So it's a really good question. I'll respond to this on the moderator as well. So OAuth 2 actually is much more straightforward to code it yourself versus OAuth 1. OAuth 1 required you to do cryptography on the message and create this thing called the nonce, which was a sort of a time-based setting that you had to track. So while we have built-in OAuth 1 support, you can always do OAuth 2 by yourself. So you can publish your web app as an endpoint to receive the callback. And there's several examples of this. If you look at my Google I/O 2013 presentation on the YouTube Analytics API, on GitHub, they have the whole code posted, including how you can get refresh tokens. So one-time authorization that grabs an offline grant and just behind the scenes every hour gets a new token if needed. So it's a one-time process to authorize your script along with the OAuth 2, and then from there on it's good to go and running as the end user that authorized it. So the bottom line is it's possible. It does require a little bit more time to set up. Let's see.
The final question, need to buy more quotas in Google Apps Script.
Let's see.
We are definitely aware that that this is a feature that users would like. Start Unleash Tracker, nothing to announce at this time for this, but you know, if more and more users require this functionality, we'll definitely look into that. Yeah.
All right, just wanted to quickly look through it. There was a question around converting from UI app to HTML service. Just to very quickly respond to that. UI app is still supported, so no need to jump or anything along those lines. But we do think HTML service will provide much more flexibility, and we'll keep looking at ways to provide more samples. Eric Colita recently shared some really good sort of samples around the Tasks API. Please take a look at that for some best practices and sample code. I think we're approaching time.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Sure. And I just want to throw out there that we do have some more extended samples currently in the works that show functionality on how to get HTML servers running. We understand that UI app is like a dead simple thing. This widget here, this widget here, you're done. But yeah, no, so that's upcoming. Stay tuned. Keep a lookout on our developer page, and then you'll find these as they come in.
All right, lots of really good questions. I think we're up on time. We'll schedule this again, and we're hoping to hear more questions and feature requests and ideas from you guys. We'll also continue to answer questions to the moderator as we get them.
Yep.
All right, thank you very much, and looking forward to chatting with you guys again.
Thanks for tuning in.